save. This is at the end of the industrial era, right around the early modern era. Attila's going to help us demonstrate that. His trait is Scourge of God, because people are a really hard worker. They can destroy cities at twice the speed as everybody else. They're also a horse civ, so they actually start with animal husbandry, so they've got access to horses right away. They get +1 production from pastures. They got 2 unique units, the horse archer and the battering ram. The battering ram is actually a spearman replacement. Absolutely devastating to other cities in the early games. If you find yourself starting a game next to Attila, it's one of those things you kind of want to watch out for. So we're going to go ahead and open the policy tree. Now, I mentioned about what matters in diplomacy later in the game after the effects of religion, not the beliefs, but the diplomatic effects of religion starts to fade away and become less important. And that's order, autocracy, and freedom. When you choose these late game policy trees that all unlock in the industrial, if you choose freedom and you have a friend that has freedom, you automatically get a boost from that. You'll want to work together. If you choose autocracy, somebody else choose freedom, they might not agree with you so much anymore. So we chose autocracy. We're playing as Attila, for Pete's sake. So let's go ahead and open the diplomatic overview. We can see that Pakal, who we were friendly with, they've got an embassy in our capital, is suddenly rather offended. His people chose order. We're now autocratic. So he might not be able to work with us as much anymore. So we might want to find people that are like us before we choose that last tech tree. It can really give us a leg up in terms of diplomacy. Now, everybody's already familiar with city-states, especially if you've played Civilization V before. A lot of the basic mechanics of city-states still work relatively the same, but what we wanted to do is make them a much more dynamic part of the game experience. So we had a diplomatic victory before. Our fans took to calling it the economic victory for a very valid reason. Basically what the player could do is rack up a large amount of gold, and at the last turn of the game, they could spend all the gold, become everybody's ally, win a diplomatic victory. And we wanted to squash that. So we've greatly reduced the effects of gold on influence, and instead we put in a very dynamic quest system that takes place all throughout the game. And they'll interact with you more as well. Brussels, for example, has 2 very simple quests. They want a pledge of protection. Most likely they were bullied by another civilization that came up to them and demanded tribute. If you have a strong military force near them, you can intimidate them into giving you a worker, giving you gold. And they might give in to that. They'll be relatively afraid of you now, and they'll go running off to another civ looking for protection. So that can give you a big influence boost. They also particularly want you to generate a great scientist, so that's more influence. Budapest is a global competition. They're shouting out to the world, "World, impress us with whoever has the most culture over the next 21 turns." Whoever does that is going to become their ally. So there's a lot of these quests that are very powerful, scattered all throughout the game. A lot of neat interactions that can occur as that, and we hope this will make we hope this will make the diplomatic victory much more dynamic and interesting. We've also got 2 new city-state types. We've got a religious city-state type, which, as you probably have guessed, provides faith for their allies, and then we've got Colombo up here, which is the mercantile city-state type. They're kind of a happiness-driven city-state. If you're allies with them, you get a happiness bonus plus a custom luxury that only they make, so they can only provide that to their allies. You can't get it any other way, like porcelain or jewelry. So really beneficial, especially if you're looking for a big happiness boost or you want that extra luxury. Now let's go ahead and jump over to espionage. A lot of our fans have already played espionage in Civilization IV. Now, just about the only thing that we share in common with that system is that we can steal techs. We enjoy stealing techs, so that's still there. But otherwise, we've completely overhauled this system to be a lot more interactive with diplomacy. We want it to really have an impact. So, spies are no longer running around on the map. They're not individual units. They're all controlled from within this interface. And they're a finite resource. So you can see that we've got 3 spies here. They're not that many. Basically, the entire espionage system unlocks when the first player enters Renaissance. It activates for everybody, and they all get 1 spy. Each era after that, they get an additional spy. So if you build the National Intelligence Agency, National Wonder, you'll get an additional spy. So by the end of the game, you might only have 4 to 5 spies, and you kind of want to take care of them because they can be killed, and if they get killed, you're without that spy for many turns until you get a new recruit. So you've got Denjizik. He's a new recruit. He replaced a spy that was killed. Let's go ahead and assign him. Now, Ethiopia has been giving us trouble all game, so we're going to put him in there just to kind of keep an eye on him. So you'll see he'll be traveling for 1 turn. Once he gets there, he's going to start establishing surveillance, and by default, start looking for tech to steal. But that's not all he does. But I'll tell you about that in just a minute. We're going to bump up to the first one here temporarily, to Balambar. He's actually sitting in the cultural city-state of Florence, trying to rig elections. Florence is currently allied with the Maya. We want them for ourselves. So this is another interaction type that we can have with city-states. Every 12 turns, like clockwork, across the entire world, every city-states are holding their small local elections. So Balambar's in there, greasing the local politicians' hands, kind of spreading some money around. Generally, raising our influence up just a little bit and reducing everybody else's if he's successful. Now, if there's another spy in there, or a higher-ranking spy, he'll be foiled on that. But generally, it's just a slow water drip of influence for us. Now, there's a more messy thing that you can do, a little more drastic, and that's the coup option. Let's go ahead and click that. It says we've got a 68% chance of success. What that means is we want to send in the spy, and we want him to completely replace that government with one that's friendly to us. The percentage chance is based on how close we are to the current ally of that city-state. In this case, we're fairly close, but not super close. We've got a 68% chance. Now, if we fail this, they execute our spy, our influence goes into the tank, and it creates generally a mess. So let's go ahead and do it anyways, because we're Attila. And it's successful. You can see the notifications on the side that they're no longer allied with the Maya. They're now allied with us. We now have access to their luxuries and everything else that comes along with being an ally. So that's really cool. Now, our bottom spy, Elek, is a highly promoted spy. You get promotions by doing tasks well. For instance, what he just did with the coup, or for rigging elections, or for stealing tech. He's been in Constantinople for a while, just keeping an eye on things. He's really good at what he does. And this brings us to the next really cool part of espionage, which is intrigue. Basically, the intrigue system is plugged directly into the AI of the game. And that's for our spies, that's for the AI spies, that's for everybody. So they can actually sniff out information, and depending how good that spy is, they can get very specific information or very vague information. Now, we can see earlier in the game that Theodora actually warned us that Haile Selassie of Ethiopia launched a sneak attack against our city of Adama. Now, this is huge, and it was great because she came to us, she said, I just wanted to tell you about this, and that was amazing. So now we actually had a little time to prepare, and lo and behold, here comes Haile Selassie rolling across our borders. That's a really exciting part of the game, especially in the later game when you get this kind of warning. Now, we've got our own agent, Elek, who's embedded in Constantinople. He's been sniffing out information. He let us know that Theodora is secretly plotting against Pakal, and he also sniffed out that Theodora is building up an army with naval escorts for sneak attack against another civilization, which we can probably guess is Pakal. Now, we can take this information if we want, go to Pakal, tell him about it through diplomacy, and he will love us. We'll be his new best friend for warning him about this. Or we can just sit back and watch the show unfold. Theodora's been good to us. We'll just ignore it and let it happen. So this is really an exciting part for us. You get to kind of peek under the hood. You can choose to be an information broker if you want to, and just have your spies out sniffing out information for your own allies, or you can put them in your own cities for defense. You have a lot of options. Now, I mentioned earlier about, Haile Selassie's invasion of us. We started out the game with a particular victory type in mind, but as any civilization player knows, once you feel slighted or wronged, you throw a temper tantrum and conquer your way across a continent trying to get rid of this one player that wronged you. We've done the same thing. So we've got Haile Selassie of Ethiopia compressed up into the corner of this continent to our last two cities. Our Navy's been really effective at helping us because it's such a thin strip of land, they had broad reach into the center of this continent. So this brings us to another change that we've made on the naval side. We've completely rewritten the AI for Navy because we've really changed up the way that it works. Everything was ranged before. So if you plop down a city right on the edge of your continent, right on the seaside, you could sit back in your lawn chair, wave to the enemy ships as they went by, because if you controlled your continent, you never had to worry about enemy Navy ships unless they were bringing an amphibious force with them. They could harass you, but they couldn't take you. Well, we've changed that. So now we've broken it down into two classes. The battleships, for example, are ranged. Our destroyers at the bottom are actually melee. And this is a class of ship that's with us, melee ships, all the way from Ancient through the end of the game. So let's go ahead and finish off Lalabella. So you can see we've pillaged gold, we've taken some culture. We're going to go ahead and create a puppet. We can choose to raise it if we want to, because apparently Attila's very good at that. Now we're going to come over to the east, where the vanguard of our land forces have driven up to their border. We're a full tech level ahead of Ethiopia right now. They're still in the rifle age. We've actually advanced well ahead of them. We've got our Great War series of units out. This is some of the new units that we've added to the game because we think that they're a really cool class of units. So we've got the Great War infantry, we've got the land ship, we've got the machine gunner that's later in the archery tree. We've got a couple Great War bombers down in the city to the south. Now, this has us feeling good, but the problem is as we've compressed Ethiopia, their traits started kicking in, and they've got a very defensive trait. Basically, what that means is if they're fighting against somebody that's bigger than them in city count, they get a 20% bonus fighting against them. On top of that, their unique riflemen, the Mahal Safari, are getting a 24% bonus because they're fighting near their capital. very defensive-minded and very strong. Now you add to that, they're parked on top of their citadels, they've got a great general nearby, and they've pretty much negated, by math, all of our technological advantage. But I'm playing as Attila. I care not for math. We'll attack anyways. Now we can see that they're using their trait very effectively. They're holding out very well. They've got a lot of reinforcements, and we don't have anything else coming up behind us. So their trait's very effective at defending themselves. So we might want to rethink our position for now and talk peace. It's a bad word.
ዛሬ ጠላታችንን ድል ያደረግንበት ዕለት ነው። ልባችን ደስታል እንዲሁም መንፈሳችን ይረካል።
So Attila's gone to Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. He said, "Let us have peace for 10 turns, so I have enough time to bring up reinforcements." Because we're not playing as Gandhi. We're playing as Attila, the Scourge of God, and we thank you for checking out our demo. The game is streaming on June 19, June 22nd overseas. You can get it through Steam, any retail establishment that you currently like, or any other online resource where you get your games. And thank you very much for checking it out.